This is Advisor 3.0, a show designed to help you as a financial advisor elevate your professional practice, transform your clients' lives, and take your business to the next level. I am Abraham Okusoya. Welcome to the show. One of the emerging themes that I am starting to see in this wider financial planning profession is this thing called non-intermediating financial planning, or call it non-regulated financial planning. Often, not always, this service is provided by ex-financial advisors who are fed up with the regulation and all the handcuffs, call it, inhibitions around the work that we do with clients. And they just decide, enough. I've had enough of all the nonsense. I am going to drop the regulatory part of the work, and I'm just going to focus on what I love. Now, for those of us who are still in the cold phase, let's put it that way, this may rub us off in the wrong way a little bit. And I am not sure about how I feel about this, but can you blame these guys and girls who just decide that they've had enough of regulation, they're going to reshape their work with clients to focus on what they really enjoy? And so I may not be fully on board with this theme, but I really do want to be educated. And so I am delighted to be joined by David All, an ex-financial advisor, now money coach, who is here to educate me on this theme. David, welcome to the show.
Thank you. Thank you for having me, Abraham. I'm not sure I now feel under pressure. I didn't realize
You're under
pressure.
No pressure, my friend.
I was going to educate you today, but I will do that with pleasure.
Sure. Let's do that. Let's dive right in. Let's take me back, David. Let's go back to how you became a financial advisor and the journey that you went on that led up to this point.
Oh, okay. Yeah. I mean, a very sort of, potted history, but I sort of, left school at 16 with a very, unspectacular list of qualifications. I somehow ended up in Cyprus for a while, at what I call the University of Life. I came back, after a few sort of different sort of jobs, I ended up working for Scottish Amicable, who are now part of Prudential, as a inspector. I think they were called back in the day, but basically a sales rep where I was calling on IFAs. My father-in-law at the time had an IFA business, a very strong, reputable IFA business in Bournemouth called Evely and Huckle. And it wasn't part of any plan, but ultimately I ended up going to work for them, learnt my trade and craft as an IFA. Got a little bit, I was seeking adventure. So my wife and I and two fairly young children left and went to join Towery Law International. I applied to work in Hong Kong, but because I had a wife and children, they said I'd be better off in Bahrain. So I went to Bahrain in the Middle East. Loved my time there. Ultimately, we always said when we went that if any one of the four of us wanted to come home, we would come home, no questions asked. So that happened. Came back to the UK, carried on working for Towery Law International in the UK. So gaining a lot of experience around expats, how to leave the UK tax system and how to return to it. Was working for looking after returning expats for Towery Law International, but was driving all over the country. I mean, my area was vast. I mean, I had I live in Dorset. I had Devon and Cornwall. I had a lot of clients in Manchester, around that sort of region, and also Scotland. At the time, I was a golfer. We had a lot of clients in Scotland, and nobody was going to see them. And it was like, well, I'll go. I can do a full day's work and have a round of golf in the summer. So I loved that, but got a little bit fed up with the traveling and then decided to leave. Also, that Towery Law had been bought out by that stage, and I was getting a little bit dissatisfied with the way it was going, being run by being counters effectively, and bought a business local to me in Christchurch. I went to work there initially. A guy who was looking to retire, so he was looking for someone who didn't have local clients, and I was looking for local clients because all my clients were spread all over the UK. So that was perfect. And then I, with my business partner, we grew that business. And then we came in under the radar of Succession, and they started courting us. And that was about a 5-year period, I suppose, before we decided to actually sell to them, which ultimately we did. But their deal there was that you carry on working. There's an earn out. Well, there's not an earn out. You just carry on working with them. But there's a bit of a theme there, I suppose. I became very dissatisfied with how the direction that company was taking. Just fell out of love with them completely. The rules of or the deal that was struck for the sale of the business, which was half cash, half shares, they completely changed the goalpost halfway through, which was traumatic and upsetting for lots of people that I think felt trapped. And I was strong-minded enough and financially fortunate enough to just about have enough to say, I'm not happy with that, I'm leaving. So that's what I did. But prior to that, I'd had a vision and a thought and I created on paper a business as a coach 3 or 4 years previous to that. And that kind of had sat on the shelf. And I wasn't sure what to do with it. I'd also done some formal coaching qualifications and training, and absolutely fell in love with coaching. So I left Succession and joined Octopus Money, purely as a money coach. And I absolutely loved my time there. That was helping people in the accumulation phase, how to buy their first house, starting to think about retirement later in life, those sort of things. But it was pretty full on. I was sort of 7 or 8 Zoom meetings a day, so it was quite draining. Didn't have time to develop this business plan that I had on a shelf. And so ultimately I decided to take a leap of faith with support and help of a few friends that said, no, I think you've got something here. This is a good idea. So last September, I left Octopus and set up my own business, David Hole Money Coach. So I'm in the startup, what someone described the other day as discovery stage of my business.
Fascinating journey, David. Do you mind me asking when you left Succession?
So that would be about 3 years ago now.
Right. Okay. So you didn't hang around for the payout, or can we even call it that, after when Aviva bought the business?
I'll risk upsetting a few for the humor of the many. There was talk. I took a sort of team leader's role through lockdown and helping, all the staff. I'd never done that at Succession particularly. I had no interest in helping, in doing a management role type thing. But anyway, I took that role, and which was really, really stressful and traumatic because you have people in tears about going into, working from home, and when their husbands were also working from home and their kids, and will taking furlough impact them and so on. And through that, there was talk of this special category of shares where we would be looked after for that work that we were doing, unpaid, I might add. So there was a special category of shares which were called J shares, which between me and a few of my colleagues, we quickly named Judas shares.
Sorry.
No, I didn't hang around for those. Life's too short. For me, I kind of found my vocation and my direction. It was better for my mental health to get out. And I'm sorry if my dogs are
No, no, it's fine.
interrupting that. It was better for me to get out at that point than stay with all the trauma. And I saw lots of my colleagues staying and dealing with all the trauma.
Yeah. No,
It wasn't a nice
Yeah.
time of life.
No, and when you say J shares, my initial thought is so they nearly exhausted all the different letters of the alphabet, you issuing several different share classes. But anyway, that's behind you. But
Yeah,
it must
very
be
much behind me,
bold of you to, because what many did, and again, you can't blame what would have been easier, I suppose. I'm not even sure if it's easier. People who sold 10 years or whatever, hanging on for their for their for the second half of their of the sale value. But anyway, moving on.
Well, I got the second half. I did get the second half, but it was. I don't want to even get into it, to be honest, Abraham. But it was nowhere near what my expectations or hopes were.
No, I understand that.
But it was enough to say I'm off.
Yeah, yeah, and so then you joined Octopus. Got into money coaching because Octopus is making making inroads into this space, coaching people about money, applying your skills and the coaching qualification. And then you decided, I am going to leave that and set up the business. Talk to me about, so you're still in that mindset of talking to people, helping people with money. What is it that is more attractive doing this outside of the regulatory framework which you've mastered as an ex-financial advisor?
Yeah. Well, I think to sort of pick up on your intro almost, and I can only talk of me and my story, but my story was nothing here is about avoiding regulation or being sick and tired of regulation. Yes, it's a pain, but it's there for good reason. Regulation's there to protect the consumer, and that's, right and proper. So for me, it wasn't a question of trying to get away from the regulation. It was just the path and the journey that I took meant that regulation wasn't necessary. And okay, that is a benefit and a bonus, but also it's a benefit to the clients because I don't sell products. That's one of my biggest, advantages of clients dealing with me. I'm never going to slide an application form across the table to a client. So I can approach it in a totally different way. Clients are paying me for my time and my expertise and my guidance. They're not, and I'm never going to sell a product. So that cynicism is completely removed. So I think that, and I have experience of this from when I worked overseas. People used to say all the financial advisors that couldn't cope with the UK regulation, swan off to wear the cream chinos and the brown shoes and swan around, Spain or wherever. I mean, I was in Bahrain, so it was slightly different, but and again, some people might have gone to get away from regulation, but equally, there's a lot of people that just went for the sun, and still do a good job for their clients. That's human nature. It's like, do you want to help people or do you want to try and just sell something for your own benefit? And the reality is that the more you help people, genuinely help people, then if you've got a good business model, the money will look after itself. I never chased the pound. I get paid. Some people might say I charge too little, but I feel I'm charging a fair price for the work that I'm doing, very fair price, offer great value. But because I'm not selling products, there's no regulation involved. So for example, I might signpost somebody to Vanguard. Okay, no great surprise. clients can go to Vanguard direct, but their relationship around purchasing of any product is with Vanguard, not with me.
Mm.
And so I'm not Vanguard. I don't work for Vanguard. Clearly, I've got no Vanguard. Don't know who I am. Like any client that goes and invests with them, they don't. I'm not being paid for that advice. And if I was, where there are some companies where I'll signpost people to, that will offer me an introducer's fee, I don't take that. I get that rebated straight back to the client in terms of reduced fees. So I said that from day one. I felt that would be relinquishing my impartiality if I was to take an introducer's fee, for example. Again, it's all about the client. Put the client first in every situation, then the business will grow.
So, talk to me about what you actually do as a coach.
I help clients get a deeper understanding of their financial situation. In very simple terms, I help clients to enjoy their money, to spend their money without fear of running out of money. So I have two ways that I help clients. One of them is my own process that I use. Very, very simple. A, B, C, D, and draw a line down the middle of a piece of paper and a line across the middle, 4 boxes. A is where are you at? That's factual. That's what your situation and circumstances are now, pension contributions, pension funds, ISAs, whatever it might be. B is where do you want to be? What sort of income do you want, for example, in retirement, and from what age? Those are the only two sort of bits of detail I need initially. C is what do you consistently need to do to get from A to B? And also what challenges are there? What's going to stop you from getting from A to B? And what changes do you need to make? And often that will be reducing your charges and potentially increasing your risk with guided conversation to make sure that clients are comfortable with that. That will make a significant difference to their outcomes. And D is what are your drivers and what are your dreams? So why are you doing what you do? So, for example, in my own situation, my father died relatively successful in business at 64, and if he knew what his financial situation looked like, he would have lived his life differently. So it's a big driver for me. Don't be the richest man in the graveyard. Don't run out of money at 72 if you're going to die at 90. But the second part of my process, you'll be delighted to hear, is the timeline software, which is just fantastic. And I've been using that. I got introduced to that within Succession, and I've been a massive fan of it ever since, because it just gives people clarity in a time frame, in incredibly easy to use and explain software. Clients just get it. I don't need very long with a client to explain what I've just explained in terms of my process, and then show them, giving them an example of the timeline software, which is just, it's brilliant. And then clients, they just get the whole conversation. Is they're not about what percentage of their funds are in Japan or in Asia or in the US or who. I mean, it's just, that's not, it's relevant, but it's not what's going to inspire a client. What inspires the client is, have you seen this? You could retire at 60 and change your car every 3 years for the rest of your life, and pay for your daughter's wedding and your son's wedding 3 years later, and have the income that you want, and build in some extra fund money for the first 10 years of retirement, and you still won't run out of money. And if you need to go into care, well, we can, the property will be sold. And, just giving people that confidence, it's just such a wonderful position to be in as a person, to be able to help people.
It's powerful, and thank you for giving Timeline a plug. But um, Oh, thank you. You're very kind. As you talk about this, the thing that comes to my mind is this is what you've described is basically half of what an advisor would do, right? And then, and we might even argue, I don't think there's an argument, but that's probably where nearly all the value is of helping people figure out what they want in life, where they are, what resources they have, um, and and essentially joining the dots. Then there is the second half of, okay, um, uh, you need to, let's say, increase your contribution. You need to invest in a different portfolio, or dial up the risk, or dial up the equity contention and all that stuff. So what do you do there? Clearly you have the expertise, the understanding, and there's a lot, I assume, that you can explain to the client without straying into the regulatory arena. Tell me how far you go before you say to the client, okay, uh, go off to Vanguard and figure the rest out, or actually I'm going to pass you on to a regulated advisor.
Um, I tend to run 3 charts with people as part of the initial process. It's a 12-month project, to get people's finances, get them clear on, because it takes some time, sometimes take people a while to define what their goals might be, for example, and especially when they get to an understanding of, like, well, okay, on a fairly basic model, you could get to where you want to get to, you could go a lot further, and therefore I send them away to really sort of define their dreams and what they really want, if they could afford it. And so that's generally takes sort of a good sort of 6 weeks, maybe 3 months, depending on the client and the complexities. So it's often at least that period before we look at an action list, and that might be transferring funds to Vanguard, for example. Often I'm talking to clients about who are looking at selling their business, so they haven't necessarily got a lot of their capital right here, right now. But that's what I do. I answer those questions. How much is enough to ... sell your business, retire, take a redundancy payment, whatever it might be. But more importantly, enough for what? How do you want to live your life? How do you want to spend your time? And then we can reverse engineer that and say, okay, well, this is what you're going to need to fulfill those aspirations. So it's often quite a long time, let's say 3 months, before we're physically saying, right, okay, now you need to look at where you're going to invest, and look at those sort of issues. And most of my conversations really would be around the level of risk and the charges. So report 1 is generally where are you at the moment? Report 2 is where you could be if you make some fairly simple changes. So for example, a client who's paying 2%, an old Succession client who's paying 2% per annum when you build in the platform, the fund management charges, and the advisor charge. What does that look like if you move across to Vanguard and you get rid of the platform charge and the advisor charge? So 2% down to 0.22% can make quite a big difference when you use the timeline software to demonstrate that over 20, 30, 40 years. And if you build into that as well, maybe a slight increase in risk, having a lot of conversations about, where the single most important factor around the level of risk that you take is the time frame. And if you're investing into a pot of money that's going to be there to provide your income, that pot's there forever, at least say 30, 40 years, then you could afford to take a higher level of risk if you need to, and enables conversations like that. So that's what drives that. Whether they go to Vanguard or another is another matter. But one of the companies I met at your wonderful conference a few weeks ago, compare and invest, they've got, it's like a comparison, website, and they've been releasing some stuff over the last couple of weeks. It's like, Vanguard versus Nutmeg, Vanguard versus Interactive Investor. And there's a common theme there. I mean, this is nothing, I'm nothing to do with that company, but the outcome is always the same. Vanguard ain't bad. and that's common, I mean, I don't know the stats, but if you look at the amount of money that's flooding out of actively managed funds into, the likes of Vanguard, it's a phenomenal amount of money that's going on a regular basis. So somebody's got it right.
Vanguard don't pay me enough for you to just continue to advertise their product and their name on. I used to say I'm the biggest unpaid salesman for Vanguard in the UK. Now it seems like you've beaten me to that position.
Yeah, but I don't. You said they don't pay you enough. I don't get paid anything.
Well, I don't get paid. That is the point. I don't get paid.
But my money's where my mouth is as well. So I've got money. Most of my money's invested with Vanguard. But so it's a while. But by that stage, the clients are comfortable with the reasoning behind, or the benefits and advantages of making those changes. So, and there's other situations as well. I mean, I still do recommend people to IFAs when the need is there, when it's regulated advice that's needed, advised products, which is still a great place for those. So, I don't, I'm friends with IFAs, and they're still talking to me. So, but I think they're all watching with interest, because there's a number of people that are doing what I'm doing, but it's a small number. Personally, I feel it's the future of financial planning.
Talk to me more about how it's the future of financial planning. So in this, utopia future, can we even call it that? In this future, that David's version of the future that you're describing, how do money coaching or money coaches differ than financial advisors? And do financial advisors still exist in your mind? I am upsetting all of our listeners right now, but I am going to do it nonetheless. So tell me, in this world that you imagine, how has the role of the financial advisor changed?
Well, I think perhaps looking at that a slightly different way. There is no question there is an advice gap. And that's something that Octopus were work very strongly towards. But I think that there is and I don't necessarily think that there's a number here, but if I was in a coffee shop the other day working, a chap next to me took an interest in my dog, and we just got chatting. He's fairly wealthy, but his money's in property. He's got a portfolio of rental properties. I can help him massively extract himself from that situation in a very tax efficient way by using BPR type products, and manage his situation and his income, into retirement. A financial advisor, I would suggest, would not necessarily be interested in them until they've got money to invest. So I think that there's an awful lot of people who either haven't got, their money's already tied up, so they're not new, there isn't new money for a financial advisor to get stuck into, and also for whatever reason won't deal with a financial advisor. I'm coming across more and more people who've never dealt with a financial advisor for ill-placed perceptions, because financial advisors do a great job. I've never said anything about that. Put me in a room with a succession advisor or an SJP advisor. There you go. I promised myself I wouldn't refer to SJP, but I've gone and done it. And I will win hands down when it comes down to cost comparisons. And at the end of the day, I do feel that what I'm doing is the future, but I'm 60 this year. I'm not looking to build an empire here. I've got no great aspirations as far as that's concerned. I'm looking to build a very nice lifestyle business for me, um, and help as many people as I can. And ultimately, I could see myself taking someone on in the next sort of 18 months, mentoring and training them to take over the business, which the business would then, pay me out, as it were. So I think there is a future path, but that's not for me. I've got, I would say I love what I do. I don't consider, I've never been so enthusiastic and motivated about a business in my life. Um, but I think that comes down to I love what I do, which is helping people. And if that gives me a nice lifestyle in the meantime, then so be it. Um, but I feel that there is a great alternative to the financial planning world, the IFA world. I don't think that will be me that takes them on in the same way that you've, for example, taken on the fund management world. You're a lot younger than I am.
Yeah. Yeah, no, this is fascinating, and there's a lot I'm trying to process as you talk. I do get this thing. I'm going to use the phrase because you use it about um advice gap, let's say. Um, you know, today only the you know top 8, let's round it up to 10% of the population have access to regulated financial advice the way that we imagine it. I will argue that the bottom 50% don't need advice related to investing, retirement planning, all that stuff. uh, People are going to hate me for this. Maybe they do, but because they have other issues to deal with, that's more about debt, boosting your earnings, and all that stuff. Um, and that's probably for the government to worry about. And then you have the middle, let's say 40%. Maybe regulated advice will touch, let's say, another 5. Let's even be ambitious and say 10%. So we're serving 20% of wealth and income. Then you have the middle 30% that I hope to God is served by the likes of octopus money. My friend, she'll crucify me for forgetting the name. The name money means is the one I'm looking for. Yeah, so there are people. Yeah, there are people. Helena Waddle, and so there are people going for that segment. I get what you. So I am all in for money coaches attacking and helping that you know middle 30%. I still struggle with the idea of alternative to regulated financial planning for the top 20% of the population. I can't see, for instance, why a regulated advisor cannot help your friend who has property assets, because at the end of the day, it's entirely about just redefining the um, the revenue model. I looked on your website, by the way. Transparent, simple, 1800. So it's like, I'm going to charge you 1800, 2 grand, 5 grand, whatever the figure is, to help you manage that transition. It has nothing to do with whether or not investing is required or retirement planning is required. Retirement plan or pension planning is required. Whether we're making any decision that on regulated product. I'm a financial planner. I can do the cash flow. I can hold your hand through that. You got to pay me for it. And so, to the extent that my business model is defined, we would do that and we will get paid. Now, if and when that time comes that we need to invest money, that we need to figure out issues around annual allowance or all of those things, then we would do that.
Yeah, I think, and there are lots of, I mean, and more financial advisors. I mean, even locally to me, some really, really good ones that are doing that piece and charging. From what I've seen, they're charging a fair bit more than I am, but they're that's coming out on reports that are regulated, so I get that as well. But I think, I suppose where I come from it is looking at, my first conversations are about, what are your dreams? What are what's it all about? What are you trying to achieve? And I think that those are conversations which not many financial advisors are having. It's not the norm. And it's quite refreshing for clients, because it's almost like, well, what if you could retire now? I mean, I get clients referred to me from a local firm of solicitors that deal with redundancy payments. And I had one recently where, the guy was leaving a big local bank. And it's like, well, what are you going to do? What do you want to do? And he wanted to set up a dog walking business. Right? Massive smile across my face, because it's, oh my God, I can help you do that. And how fantastic is that? Any weather, you can be out, in this beautiful countryside that we live in, walking dogs, no stress. Well, there is stress, I suppose, but a different type, and helping people to be able to achieve that. And there wasn't a lot of money on the table. That I don't, a lot of financial advisors wouldn't be able to help him in that situation. And, I keep being asked and working with various companies that at marketing side, where as I'm growing and building my business, to define my typical client, for example. And it's like, well, okay, I can define a really good client that I'm perfect for, but I can help a 25-year-old, just by talking to them about risks that they might be taking on their workplace pension. There's no money in that for a financial advisor, but that's life-changing for that 25-year-old. They get out of a balanced fund into a 60, 70, 80% equity-based fund, especially if they've got lifestyle planning. Why on earth lifestyle planning still exists in this world is beyond me. And don't get me on my soapbox about that. But you know what I mean? But there are
me
ways
too,
that I can
actually.
help everybody. When was the last time someone bought an annuity?
So first of all, the things we agree on, I actually, as you speak about this, I do agree. Even in the top 20% that I describe, there will be people who don't just want an advisor. There will be people who want to DIY the investment for whatever reason, who will benefit from the sort of help and support that you give, that isn't, and there will be people who just don't want to. Let's just be honest with that. Or so I get that idea of alternative. I've seen this actually in the US, where people might be comfortable with, they just need a bit of help and guidance, and they want to focus on what it is that they want to achieve out of their lives and all that stuff. And I get that. But I also see what you mean by having freedom to frankly work with anyone that you think you can help without, commercials being necessarily the biggest driver. And especially a client that may not be attractive for traditional financial planning, for a whole range of reasons. Your dog walker example is one. An advisor might not want to stray into an area that they don't have competence. I also do.
That's an awful pun.
I also do.
That's an awful pun.
Absolutely.
Adrian.
Yeah.
Stray for the dog walker.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, yeah. But I also do agree. I also do believe that a lot of what you describe around helping people live the kind of life that they desire, and I'm going to use the dreaded word dream, and expand their horizon and things like that, they're things that should be part of traditional financial plan. Many advisors will, many plans that we work with will say, well, we do that anyway, we always want to get better. But I agree that more advisors should do it first and foremost before we get into the conversation of investing and all that. And even for clients already investing and planning with us, you need to go back and revisit these things, or do it if you've not done it with them. So I don't think that, but again, there is value in having multiple business models in this space. I think it gets everybody um, on their toes.
Yeah, and there always will be. Listen, I'm not going to bring
Yeah.
down SJP. There's
I've
plenty
tried.
of.
I have.
I know, and I'm right behind you in that. But I think if you come back to look at it from the client's point of view, okay, then using your software particularly, plug, but just model it on £1 million at 2% charge compared to £1 million at 0.22% charge. And
I don't
suppose
know where
where
you're getting 0.22% charge for, because even if you have Vanguard Live Strategy, you will still pay platform, which is 15 basis point, no?
Yeah, okay. So yeah, I tend to model it at 0.5
Yeah, I see what you
percent,
mean.
but nonetheless, and even if that's only
The
at
point stands,
250,
yeah.
even if it's only at £250,000, then boy, that clients, I mean, I think this is an audio podcast, but this is what clients do when I share my screen with them, when I show them the difference. Certainly using your compare tool, which, by the way, please make that printable and part of the report. But they do this. Like, watch. They lean in at the screen and they go, "Oh my, wow." When you see the
Yeah,
difference in legacy, for example, it's mind
yeah.
blowing. And then it's like, well, your goal is not to leave a massive legacy. Now let's go back and play with it and see how we can spend that.
Wow.
I have a great job, you know,
Yeah, no,
um,
yeah.
helping people to get that understanding. So, of course, there's place for IFAs, and there always will be, but hopefully, the good ones have been doing cash flow modeling and having those conversations for quite some time. And when I looked at my coaching training, for example, it wasn't, it just became obvious. Well, I'd been coaching for 35 years, just didn't call it that. We called it, we didn't think of it that we were coaching, but of course we were. When you talk to people about what they're trying to achieve and helping people spend their money and what have you. I think the biggest difference with me is on the charges. That the lower charges are available if with some very good and reputable companies, the likes of Vanguard, that people can do direct. And with a bit of guidance and me holding their hand and sitting in the corner sort of helping them effectively to have the confidence to make those changes, have the understanding and awareness of why they should make those changes for their benefit, not for mine. And that becomes abundantly clear. So reducing charges and having a serious conversation about risk in terms of the lifespan of the investment makes a massive difference to the amount of money that people can spend on memories and experiences.
Yeah. I know you're at the sort of early stage of this, but is the idea then that the client will renew after that initial period of you working with them, that they will renew that relationship for as long as they want to, or do you see this as kind of, all right, I've helped you, you're off on your own, off you go?
It's a 12-month project at the end of
Right.
which we can shake hands and part as friends. The client will be in a much better position financially and have a lot more awareness. Or we can move on a retained basis, where they pay me a very modest fee to become part of my sort of retained clients, and I'm building out that proposition. I mean, I started in September, so I'm still in the
I
building and
know.
discovery
Well,
stage of my business, but loving that journey. But yes, there will be that option, or the client can just stay in the background and contact me as and when they need some help, and I'll just charge that on an hourly rate. So I don't. There's nothing. Uh, the client has options, and whatever they feel comfortable with. But I'm starting to come up to the stage now. A couple of really, very early clients before I formally launched that have already renewed, and September will be the start of that sort of process where I will, introduce what the renewed proposition looks like, and it will be very light touch, but it'll be me there in the background because, even if it's just annual ISA and pension contributions, there's always something that people need some help with. But often, a lot of my clients are gearing up and building towards selling their business, for example. And I think that overall, what I bring to the table is clarity, signposting, structure, and accountability. And it's more than just, being there for a year and disappearing. They still need to be held to account. Have you done your ISAs? You've talked about changing your will or setting up LPAs. Have you done that? And I nag clients about that because that's really, really important. But so yeah, there is an ongoing model as well, but that helps to build the value of my business. But I think it comes back to, if you do a good job for the client and always putting the client first, then you'll get more referrals, more renewed clients. So it always comes back to doing the right thing and the best thing for the client.
This will sound odd, David, might sound odd, but to me, what you're doing is actually a big, massive validation of financial planning or financial advice. In other words, for years, advisors, the profession has been brainwashed into thinking that, picking funds, fiddling about with portfolio, even pensions to a certain extent, is what makes our service valuable, right? It's why we link the initial fee as a percentage of asset invested. It's why we link the ongoing fee as a percentage of asset invested, right? But actually, speaking to you, and it just happened to be the same, the same time. Yesterday, I spoke to Mary Waring, who sold financial advice business as well, and then still, set up helping people with, let's put it under the same category of money coaching, and she deals with wealthy women, women who have I don't know, more than £500,000 of wealth, and they're going through divorce and all that stuff. So she doesn't do the regulated thing anymore, but she, provides this thing that she calls concierge service around financial concierge service around money. And it could range anything from, just making sure that the house insurance is renewed, and,
Yeah.
all of those things. And she charges really good, but not cheap for the service. Because and I know of others. Gillian Cardi, for instance, used to be a financial advisor, and then she moved to Spain, and she's doing the same thing. So to me, this is like, okay, yes, I get the value in. I believe the value in providing fully regulated financial advice that start with all of these things, and ultimately may or may not end with some product. I still believe that that's where the highest value is for the client for whom that is appropriate. But to me, it's like we should stop thinking or believing these lies that we've been told, that investing, picking fun, fiddling with product is what makes advice valuable, because as you've shown, as Mary's shown, as Gillian's shown, I can carry on with names, there is value. Advice doesn't need, I have had this before. If you're a financial advisor, you need to demonstrate some sort of value in fun picking, in alpha, to justify your existence. And I'm like, no, there is, there is maybe such thing as alpha, but it's practically non-existent. There is beta, which is the market, and there is gamma, which is the value that comes from advisors. Advice doesn't need alpha to exist, to help justify its existence.
I've just written down something. I've always thought of you and Timeline. You're a disruptor of the financial financial fund world. And maybe I'm a disruptor of the IFA world. Maybe I'm the vanguard of the IFA world. And I'm not alone. And there's comfort in that. But maybe the difference is that, certainly in my case, I'm cheaper and can produce better outcomes as a result of clients benefiting from lower charges than, for example, SJP. And it's all about that better outcome to clients. And I think something else, there is a trend. I mean, I don't know what the percentage is, but, there's a very small percentage of us that are working in this way, some of which are still financial advisors as well. I mean, and fair play to them. I'm not knocking that at all, as long as they're doing the how much is enough and enough for what type scenarios. But there is a world where we exist and we can really, really help clients. And that's the message I'm getting. The proof of it is in the clients. The clients love what I'm doing. And I've only just started, and it's growing. It's a business. There's a business model here, which will compete with an IFA. So if you're going to put me, if you're as an individual looking, you've got money to invest, let's say, or not in my case, but you want some help, and you visit me and then you visit a financial advisor, most of the time, I believe they're going to come to me.
Fascinating stuff. David, it's been really good talking to you and putting the world to the right and thinking about, what the future might hold for the profession. I have thoroughly enjoyed our conversation, so I am going to say thank you very much for your time. Thank you for your thoughts. If you want to say, a few parting words, where we can find you, more about you, that sort of thing.
Yeah, well, thank you for the opportunity. I was conscious that, you a lot of your growth of your business is coming from IFAs passing their funds to you, and boy, are you doing a good job at that. So hats off to you for that. So thank you for the opportunity. I think there's also an opportunity for Timeline with people like me, and I think there's a growing number of people who might be fed up with the regulation or looking to retire, sell their businesses, but don't want to retire. So still being able to help people. So I think there's a big area for that of growth amongst your client base. In terms of how to find me, it's David Hole Money Coach. I should have been better prepared for this, shouldn't I? In terms of my website, on Instagram.
.uk.
My Instagram is hole.david, and I've got quite a good campaign on the go there. Lots of short videos and what have you. So by all means, dip in to that. I've got where's my link tree? There we go. So my website is crikey, should get better at this, shouldn't I? www.davidhole.uk. There you go. And most things can be found on there. I'm on LinkedIn too, and I'm happy to chat with anyone who wants to have a chat, about what I'm doing.
David, thank you for your time. Really enjoyed our conversation.
No, likewise. Thank you for your time.
That's a wrap on today's show. Massive thanks to my production crew, especially Jake Osha, Melissa Canham, and the entire team. And of course, to our sponsor, Timeline, the market leading provider of integrated planning technology and model portfolio service to advisors. I do hope you've enjoyed today's show. Head over to Apple Podcast and give us your review there. Until next time, goodbye.